let's talk about something that we just released, and it's so recent that it could be considered something that is still pending release. But these are our street density S4 S5 motor mounts. They fit all the 3.0T S cars, including SQ5. These are basically a factory format mount. So if you look at it, it looks just like a factory mount. Now, keep in mind this one only looks like half of a factory mount because it's been
You will
cut
get
in
a
half.
complete mount if you want.
Yeah. Someone's like, I don't know, that doesn't look like my factory mount. Okay, well, it's been cut in half. Um, but here inside, we've cut it open to show that this is solid filled rubber in here, and normally there would be a void in here filled with like a hydraulic fluid. The problem, oh, here, this is the factory one. So you can kind of see the big hole here in this one, and it's been solid filled here. So we removed that fluid valving functionality, and we simply rely on the rubber to do all the mounting and dampening of your motor. And this is actually a great way to do it. The factory tries to get a little fancy by making the mount either stiffer or softer under varying conditions to reduce the potential of NVH. We're able to reduce NVH and essentially eliminate it in all conditions by just optimizing the solid rubber. The factory could have done that too, but again, they just try to get fancier than they need to be. So the result is a better performing mount that is stiffer, that gives you more drivetrain control. So when you apply power, that power gets to the ground faster. Instead of loading up and squeezing the factory mounts, our mounts are going to more solidly, um, hold the motor so that torque can get to the tires instead of moving the motor mounts. We can do that without making the car uncomfortable to drive. We're also seeing reports of these mounts failing, factory mount, not these mounts, but these mounts, the factory ones failing, um, well under 100,000 miles of driving. So,
60,000.
yeah, we just had a customer tell us 60,000 in an SQ5. So, um, I would say this is pretty much a lifetime product. Certainly is going to substantially outlast the factory mounts. The problem with the factory mounts is eventually this fluid leaks out. It's a fluid, it's an oil, and it's going to find its way out. And when it does, there's nothing left in here to support the mount, and so the mount collapses on itself. So once that happens, the mount has failed, and your motor is going to, sit lower, and it's not going to support the motor, and the mount's actually going to get a lot softer.
Yeah, and it also you get a lot more movement in this rubber interface, and they'll start to tear as well.
Yeah,
So
then it tears.
it kind of gets to a full like catastrophic failure once
Yeah.
they lose the fluid.
Eventually, the top just kind of rips. This is a similar construction mount to the B8 cars, and those all really started failing after the cars started hitting 50, 60,000 miles. Very, very common. We saw a lot of those mounts for that reason. So these are available in stock, ready to ship. What else? What else?
I think high pressure pumps coming.
A high pressure fuel pump is coming very soon. We're definitely going to have tuning stuff happening very soon.
The turbo inlet.
Oh yes, our standard sized cast turbo inlet and our super duper turbo inlet for the 3.0 T turbo motor, and then we will have adapters and couplers to mate the big super duper inlet to our current intakes, whether you've bought a P34 or an X34. Yeah, and we do have an upcoming S34 that's a little further out. The S34 is kind of our open shield format, and that intake will be fully capable of supporting 1,000+ horsepower setups. So it's kind of our intake offering for a lot of these big turbo setups running around out there, and eventually the even bigger stuff that's coming. These will hold up to big turbo tuning, no problem.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of
That would be
extra
very-
force. It's engine torque isn't. I mean, we talked about this before too. The amount of torque you're making isn't necessarily going to be bigger, just because of the turbo.
The thing that this mount won't do any better than the factory mount necessarily is like if you do a lot of really hard drag racing. Let's say you build like a 8-second car, and you're making a ton of power. That kind of use is very hard on mounts where you're getting like big shock loads to the drivetrain. Um, and so eventually we will come out with a motorsport version of this mount that would be suitable for that kind of use. And again, you can go to the drag strip with your stage 3 car with our street density mounts, and they're going to hold up just fine. But they're not necessarily a lot stronger than the factory mounts when it comes to instantaneous forces in use. They still have all the same basic construction as the factory mounts. Again, we haven't seen these mounts failing from drag racing use yet, um, but we will eventually make a motorsport mount which will be able to withstand any kind of horsepower or shock loading or abuse that you can deal. But these will hold up very well to any kind of tuning that you're doing. Certainly better than the factory mounts.
And our motorsport stuff is generally field rebuildable as well for
Yeah.
any rubber items in that.
It's hard to say how long. Someone's asking how long do I think they would last. I don't have any reason to believe that they would fail. But I think at least as long as the factory mounts, 100,000 miles. It's hard to say though. We haven't done that type of long-term testing. I will say we stand behind our products. If you ever have a problem with these mounts, please contact us. We'd be happy to work with you. We have a standard 1 year warranty on all of our products. But with that said, if we believe that any of our products have failed prematurely, we will work with you through our customer service department.
I mean, the architecture format of these is so known for 15 years. It's been mounts exactly like this, or very similar to this.
Yeah.
You know how.
Yeah, and we don't have widespread failure problems with any of our density mounts. There have been times in the past where we've had some quality issues that we've had to address, and we took care of customers, when those came. If you Google it, I mean, we've been selling density mounts since 2005, so you can go back literally, 10, 12 years and see customers that have had issues. But you have to keep in mind we've literally sold hundreds of thousands of these mounts, since then. So the stuff you see online is just an infinitesimally small percentage of those that we've sold.